Took me a while as a new Christian 55 years ago to get settled in my head which Bible is right. And it is God's word is preserved in the King James. So let's see. There we go. Seminar part 7. Okay. I got about 65,000 slides now, I think. So it helps if you ask the questions in the right order that I got the answer.
Yeah, I mean, we get this topic often amongst the Christians on the server where, people kind of debate, which Bible version is the best Bible version to use, what's the best translation, etc. In your view, why is the KJV the best translation to use and why?
Well, for those who don't know about us, I'm Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist preacher 49 years, almost 50, and I taught high school science and math 15 years. I believe the Bible is true. If your county, when I was a new Christian, I've got a whole collection of Bible versions. My mom was one of those. Every time a new one came out, she'd buy it and give it to me. So I got all the Bible versions that I want, way more than I want, but I got a bunch of them. And so, as a new Christian, I was confused. Where is God's word? From a strictly logical perspective, if your city passes a law and says the speed limit on Main Street is going to be 40 miles an hour, right? They have to do three things. Number one, they got to publish the law. They put it in the record on Thursday night with the county vote, or the city council voted to make the speed limit 40, and they got to publish that in public records, okay? Then they have to post it, put up a sign. They got to publish it and post it. Then they have to preserve it. They got to keep those records safe in someplace at the county, all the records, everything they ever voted on. And they've got to, if somebody knocks a sign down, they go put up a new sign. So those three steps, I think, are just logically essential for any law. If you hope to give out a punishment, this guy broke the law. Well, it wasn't posted. Then you can't find somebody for a law that wasn't posted. So they have to publish it, post it, preserve it. God, if he's going to be the judge of the universe one day, like he claims, and I believe he is, then he's got to publish his law, and he's got to post it someplace, and he's got to preserve it. Where is it? I remember as a new Christian reading my Bible and looking through the other Bible versions, getting confused, like, what's wrong here? In the NIV, I read Acts chapter 8, where Philip and the eunuch are driving along in the chariot, and he sees some water, and he says, hey, can I get baptized? Verse 36, Acts 8:36. And then look at your NIV if you have one, or almost all the New Bible versions completely leave out verse 37. They just skip the number and everything. Well, I'll show you. Anyway, so I noticed things like this. I said, somebody's wrong. Where is it? It took me a while to be dragged and kicking and screaming into the King James camp. I think that's where it's preserved. I don't think there's a single flaw in the King James Bible. There are flaws in all the rest of them. Here's the little background. I'll go quick here. The first thing the devil said to the woman in the Garden of Eden, according to Genesis 3, the serpent said to the woman, yea, hath God said. He started off his career trying to get people to doubt God's word. And he's still doing that today. Example, in Psalm chapter 12, God promised, the words of the Lord are pure words, as silver purified in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. I think it's obviously teaching God's going to preserve his words. His words are pure. Okay? Read that in the NIV. Same verse. The words of the Lord are flawless, like silver purified in a furnace of clay, purified 7 times. O Lord, you will keep us safe and protect us from such people forever. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. What do you mean? He's talking about his words. What do you mean, protect us from these people? So what happened? After the time of Christ, the disciples wrote and people wrote the last 27 books of the New Testament. And people had to make copies back in those days with, a feather pen and whatever they got. They didn't have a ballpoint pen, let alone a copy machine. So they're making copies of the Bible. They're full-time people called scribes, where we get the words inscribe, subscribe, prescribe, means to write. The scribe's job was to write all day long. And so they practiced their handwriting, and they would write out copies of the Bible. I forget how long it takes to copy a Bible, to handwrite it. I think it takes 4 months or something like that. It's quite a while. So they would write very careful. They don't want to make any mistakes, because if a mistake is found in your copy, then nobody's going to buy it. So they were handwriting copies of the Bible all over and spreading them around the world. Oh, there it is, 10 months. Takes 10 months to write a copy of the Bible is the estimate, with the methods that they didn't even have a ballpoint pen. You got to keep dipping your feather in the ink, So they made copies of the Bible. In the 1500s, when they started putting the Bible into English, they looked around. Erasmus in the 1516 made the Bible, and then Luther did one, and Tyndale and Geneva and the King James. They're all translating these original manuscripts into English. They found 5,000 copies available this is 1,500 years later, of the original Bibles. Sometimes they weren't a whole Bible, just a part, maybe just one book or a few fragments of verses, but they had 5,000 fragments to put together, 5,000, some whole copies, and they made the English Bible, the King James. King James just simply paid for it. He didn't do it, okay? He just hired 70 of the top scholars to make he said, I want the best there is, however long it takes. It took 7 years to do the King James Bible. And meanwhile, down in Egypt, in Alexandria, Egypt, nothing good in the Bible ever comes out of Egypt. In Alexandria, there was a cult that came along about 240 AD, 240 years after Christ, and they made their own version of the Bible, and they made 6,000 changes. They took out verses they didn't like. They took out 200 verses, which is why Acts 8:37 is not in the NIV. Origen was the primary guy for this cult down in Egypt, and they made their Bible. So now you got two people, both claiming to have the Bible, two groups of people. You got the Christians that are using what I would call the original manuscripts, and you got the Alexandrian cult manuscript. Both claiming to be the Bible, people arguing and fighting over which one's right, since 240 or 200, whatever it was, 240 AD. There it was early in life. So the only first mention of Alexandria is when they're disputing with Stephen. The Alexandrians have always been disputing with the real Christians of which Bible is right. Then a few copies of this Alexandrian Bible from 380 AD still survive, 350 AD. They're still around. These are really, really old manuscripts. Okay. Meanwhile, they're taking the real Bible, carefully copying it out. Every 10 months, you crank out a new copy. Eventually, you wear out your original. If it's a scroll or a book, either way, you're going to wear it out, or it's going to just get old. So once you've made copies that are certified and everything else, everybody agrees this is perfect, you can throw the original away. And I think God made sure the originals were not preserved because people would worship the paper instead of reading what it says. Oh, look, there's a piece of the original Bible. Read it's the word that's important on there, not the paper it is written on. Okay, so this Alexandrian Bible, there are 3 copies that are really old. Okay, then the Catholics did their version in 1582. They made a good translation of a bad book. They were translating the Alexandrian manuscript, which is why the Catholic Bible is missing those same verses. It's a good translation of the wrong book. This is the problem. Westcott and Hort came along and made a Greek New Testament out of the Alexandrian manuscript in 1875. People started translating the Westcott and Hort version because it was updated. But still, it's all the wrong set of manuscripts. Their argument was, look, these 3 manuscripts are older, therefore they're better. Older does not mean better. So people started doing from the Alexandrian cult manuscript. They made the revised version in 1881, then the American Standard, the Revised Standard, the New World Jehovah's Witness Bible, the New American Standard, the Good News, the Amplified, the Living Bible, the NIV. Those are all good translations of the wrong book. They're translating the Alexandrian manuscript, and this is the problem. Westcott and Hort did this. Professor Anthony Westcott from Cambridge and Professor Anthony Hort, and Brooke Westcott, who created the new Greek New Testament and other contemporary Holy Bibles, states, whatever people may say to the contrary, the American empire is a standing menace to the whole civilization of Europe, and sooner or later one or the other must perish. Surely, if ever Babylon or Rome were rightly cursed, it cannot be wrong to desire and pray from the bottom of the heart that American union be shivered to pieces. These guys didn't like what was going on in America, rebelling against their holy king, and their queen. Here's Acts 8:37, Acts 8 in the NIV. They traveled along the road. They came to some water, and the eunuch said, look, here's water. Why shouldn't I be baptized? And he gave orders to stop the chariot. Wait. Where's verse 37? I just took a picture of my NIV Bible. You can look in yours if you like. Where is verse 37? Gone. Here's the Jehovah's Witness. Oh, no, I'm sorry. New American Standard Bible. They say, verse 37, see footnote. And then in the footnote, it says, late manuscripts insert that verse. This is where it's tricky, because at the time they could say the oldest manuscripts did not have that verse, the oldest paper, parchment, okay? And they were right. But there were 5,000 other manuscripts that did have it, and they were copies off of copies, which is fine if you do a copy process that's careful. Then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are older than the Alexandrian, and found, wow, that verse should have been in there. So it was the Alexandrian manuscript that's the problem. Here's the Jehovah's Witness Bible. At least they drew a line to let you know verse 37 is gone. Here's what they left out. Philip said, if thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Why would they leave that verse out? Well, because the question was, hey, can I get baptized? Here's some water. Why shouldn't I be baptized? He said, if you believe, you can get baptized. Well, hold it. This cult down in Alexandria and the Catholic Church today and many churches today are baptizing babies. Babies aren't believers. So this verse would confuse their followers to say, well, you got to be a believer to be baptized, which would take away their finances from when parents come to church to watch the baby get baptized. So anyway, we've got a whole bunch of books. I just set them on the floor, actually, a whole series of books about the King James Bible. They can still order that. It's too late to get it for Christmas, obviously. But we got a whole series of books. How much was that, brother? The book series, can you flash that up? The King James series, $280 or something. King James blind guides. Let me get some of them back up here on my desk. Okay. The dictionary inside the King James Bible, the language of the King James. Why did they use the these and the thous and all that? Hazardous materials. This errors in the so-called mistakes or error. There are none. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So you want go to our website, drdino.com, DRDINO, or call 855-BIG-DINO. Go to extension 1 and tell my wife Sandra when she answers, hey, I would like the King James Library and get them all for $280. It's a major issue, I think. Which Bible's right? I just want to know the truth. But the argument was that older is better, which is baloney. Older means nobody used it. I wear out Bibles and put them away and get another one. Okay, this is my original Bible from 1969 when I got saved. It's loose leaf edition now. So I don't use it very often because I don't want to wear it out anymore. I got another Bible. Okay, got about 6 of them out here, half worn out. So older does not mean better. Textus Receptus was translated from 5,000 manuscripts, and then the Alexandrian corrupt manuscripts they are actually older. But that does no argument no longer holds true because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Homer's Iliad, the book of poems, comes from in second. It's only got 643 manuscripts for copies of Homer's Iliad. By 1946, they found 24,000 more manuscripts of the Bible, and they backed up the King James. Ooh. And they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, and packed up in these cylinders, preserved. Now there are 64,000 manuscripts that support the King James. The Isaiah scroll was dated at about 100 BC. It's 1,000 years older than the other manuscripts. That's one of the books you get in our book series about the King James. There's a bunch on our website, drdino.com. One more quick thought on that, because I was curious, about the these and the thous. But let me show you. That's terrible. They call Lucifer. They give Lucifer one of Jesus' names in the NIV. Blasphemy. Here we go. King James. Joseph and his mother marveled at the things that are written or spoken. Okay. NIV. The child's father and mother marveled at what was said of him. Wait. Joseph wasn't his father. Remember, he's born of a virgin. King James preserves that idea. Joseph and his mother marveled. How about the, what's this one? The English Standard Version, ESV. His father and mother marveled. No, it's not his father. There's the New Living Translation. Jesus' parents were amazed at what was being said. No, that's heresy. Jesus' father was not Joseph. Holman Christian Standard, his father and mother were amazed. I'm sorry, maybe that doesn't bother some people. It just bothers me, and I'm not going to use their Bible. Okay, to me, they goofed big time. His father and mother were marveling. Read Acts or Luke 2:32 in your Bible. Okay, Jesus' parents were surprised. The Bible says in King James, the wicked shall be turned into hell. Psalm 9. NIV, the wicked return to the grave. That makes no sense at all. Everybody goes to the grave. So I go through on my seminar part 7. You can get my whole seminar series for $50, 18 hours, off of drdino.com, or call the office and get that 18 hours. Seminar part 7 on here is covers this material I'm covering right now. Let me see. What about these? Okay, here we go. Who killed Goliath? Anybody know? David killed Goliath. King James. There was a battle in Gob where Elhanan, the son of a guy with a big name, slew the brother of Goliath. Oh, Goliath had 4 brothers. Elhanan killed Goliath's brother. Simple enough, 2 Samuel 21. Read it in your NIV. Another battle with the Philistines, Elhanan, the son of his dad, killed Goliath. No, he didn't. That's a mistake, okay? David killed Goliath. See, in order to get a copyright for your Bible or for any book, you have to have at least 10% different than anybody else. They had to make 10% changes when they made a whole bunch of mistakes. Elhanan killed Goliath. No, he didn't. New American Standard. You can go about video. So I don't want to take all day on one question, but differences here. Where's the thee and the thou? Right here. Holman Christian Standard. You can hit pause and they took out 1 John chapter 5, verse 7. There are 3 that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these 3 are one. A great verse teaching the Trinity. There's 100 more that teach the Trinity. Here's the NIV. There are 3 that testify. That's the end of the verse in the NIV. They took out half the verse. American Standard. There are 3 that testify. It is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. Where's the part about saying these 3 are one? They took that out of all these new versions. These 3 that testify. King James. These 3 are one. New King James. They left it in. New King James is the least poisonous, but it's still got some poison in there. All the rest of them took out 1 John 5, 7 is messed up bad. You can read it for yourself here. Okay. I was curious about the thee and the thou as a young Christian. In 1611, nobody was saying thee and thou. That wasn't part of the English language. So the King James translators came across a problem in their translation. They met with a committee and they said, look, guys, the word you, Y-O-U, is a problem because it's both singular and plural. If I walk into a room and a crowd of people and say, you come with me, nobody knows what I said. Did I mean you or did I mean you? Is it singular or plural? So they decided to go back to the 1300s to use the thee and the thou. They knew in the intro to the King James Bible, they knew how to use the word you and your. Not a problem. They used it with the king. Thank you, Your Highness. You did a great job. Thanks for paying us for this job for 7 years. Okay. You, ye, you, your, thee, thine, and thou. If it starts with a Y, it's plural. It's that simple. Ye, you, and your is plural. If it starts with a T, it is singular. Down here in Alabama, they speak Southern. They still say y'all and all y'all. Okay, that's the singular and plural. But when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus in John chapter 3, he said, marvel not that I said unto thee, he's only talking to one guy, ye must be born again. Well, why did he switch to plural? See, there's no way to preserve that in our current English, because he would say, we'd have to say, I'm telling you that everybody has to be born again. But in the Greek Bible, there is a singular and plural here. I'm telling you, Nicodemus, one guy, that everybody has to be born again. That's the message. But you lose that in the New Bible versions where he says, I'm telling you that you have to be born again. You can't say that applies to anybody else then. I can go on all day on the King James. That's one of my, not a pet peeve.
I really appreciate that, Dr. Hovind. Yeah, I'm very much in agreement with you on the KJV. These are very important, especially like these type of translations that say they're his mother and his father, etc. So I'm glad you touched on that. That it was very informative. Thank you. So we're gonna pull some folks up onto the stage here to ask some questions directly. Alekine, all right, we're gonna bring you up on stage. You can go ahead and ask Dr. Hovind the question. Let's see. Oh, looks like Alekine is not coming up. We'll go to Benjamin. All right, Benjamin. Go ahead and ask your question, sir.
Yo. So yeah, I wanted to ask, what do you think about the contradictions between Paul versus Jesus? For example, like in Romans it says, for whoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. In Matthew, Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. So like, how would you respond to that?
If I understand your question, I can't quite, it's the computer tech, making it a little garbled on my end down here. We're in Lenox, Alabama. They just got electricity in this part of Alabama last week, okay? We still don't have internet or anything else, but we're working on it. Is the controversy about how do you be saved? Is that it? Is it by calling on the Lord or calling on, is it the name you're concerned about? Or what exactly was your question?
Well, I just heard like allegations that Paul contradicts Jesus, and I wanted to know like what's the proper response because I don't want to believe they contradict each other. And you say there's no
Oh,
contradictions.
yeah, there's no contradiction between what Paul said and what Jesus said. Tomorrow morning on our program, on Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube, we do a program, and I'm covering John chapter 3. You must be born again. Jesus talking to Nicodemus. That happens to be the sermon for tomorrow. And so, no, both teach the same thing. Salvation has always been by grace through faith. There's only two religions in the whole world, Cain and Abel. Cain brought his fruit and vegetables. Hey, God, look what I did for you. God wouldn't take it. And many religions today are doing the same thing. They're thinking God will let them into heaven because of what they do. Look at what I did. I was a good boy. I went to church. I gave money to the poor. I climbed up the steps on my knees. I kissed the Pope's toe or whatever. So they got all this. It's I. It's the same thing Cain tried, and it's not going to work. So are you saved by your works? According to the Bible, absolutely not. Are you saved by a sacrifice? Abel brought a sacrifice. God said, I'll take that. Read Genesis chapter 4. So that's what started the two great religions in the world. And the Muslims to this day are following Cain's method. They think if they work hard and follow Allah and pray on their knees and do all these things, and especially if you kill a Christian, then you get to go to heaven. That's what they're taught. It's Cain all over again. You work and you go to heaven. That's not how you get there. Salvation is a gift of God. It's by the grace of God. It's not of works, lest any man should boast. Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. So salvation is only and always has been only through belief in a substitute. Simple. Cain did not understand. Abel understood. I'm a sinner. I've broken God's laws. I want to bring God a sacrifice. And he brought a lamb. Adam and Eve, when they sinned, they made fig leaf clothes. God said, oh, no. Something has to die. And so he made them coats of skins. And I'm sure Adam walked and talked with God for 100 years in the garden. I think they did. And God told him all these things. I think the whole gospel story was given in the stars. Before Adam and Eve didn't have a Bible. So I think he gave them the gospel story in the stars. And what is now perverted into the zodiac, it's all scrambled up. But it used to be, you start with Virgo the Virgin and you end with Leo the Lion. Whole gospel story in the stars. There's a lot of books on that topic. So Adam knew full well when he sinned, he needed to get a sacrifice. But at that time in the world, nothing had died. They didn't eat any meat. They didn't kill animals to eat them. They were vegetarian. Read Genesis chapter 1 and 2. They had fruit, vegetables, and seeds was their diet. So I don't think Adam wanted to kill anything. So he took leaves off the fig tree and made aprons. By the way, made aprons. Later, God made them coats. There's a difference in God's idea of modesty and man's idea. But so I think it was started back then. Now, Paul and Jesus teaching the very same thing. Salvation is by grace. It's a gift. It's a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. I've not heard of what you're talking about. Is there somebody trying to say there's a controversy, there's a contradiction because of how to get saved from Jesus and Paul? That's a new one to me.
Yeah, I came across it in a debate, but I like your response. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And if you're trusting your works to go to heaven, you ain't going. You better trust what Jesus did.
Not.
Yeah. What Jesus did on the cross. By the way, that brings up another auxiliary rabbit trail. If salvation is by grace through what Jesus did, you can't possibly lose it. People say, can you lose your salvation? If you could lose it, everybody would lose it every day. See, you can lose your life. You can sin to the point where God says, I'm going to take you home to heaven early, like the guy in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. You can lose your rewards. You can certainly lose your joy. You can lose your fellowship, but you cannot possibly lose your salvation. When you get born into the family, you're going to heaven. God is stuck with you. You're his child. Same thing when you have children. You're stuck with them, kid. That's your kid now. Feed it, okay? And raise it. That's your kid. So I got born into God's family February 9th, 1969. He is stuck with me. I'm going to heaven. If I don't behave, I might go early. I don't want to do that. I want to behave. Yes, Daddy. Whatever you want, Daddy. My reason for obeying my earthly father was not because I was afraid of him, and he was a 6'2" Marine from World War II, the only survivor of his platoon. I wasn't afraid of my dad. I mean, he did have a paddle on the fridge and knew how to use it, but I wanted to please my dad. And I think if your motive in life is, Lord, I want to please you, now you fail and you say, Lord, I'm sorry, but I'm not afraid God's going to send me to hell. I'm afraid I'm not going to make him happy. That's all. Okay, go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Hovind. All right, we're going to bring up Andy, and Andy would like to say something. All right, Andy, go ahead and unmute and ask Dr. Hovind his question.
Hey, Ken, I've only been watching your stuff for a couple of days, actually. And funnily enough, I've just come from another server debating evolution. So it's just such a ridiculous thing on its face. And I appreciate the fact that I watched the Hit Piece documentary on you. And it's no surprise that these people went after you in this big bad way, because anything against this ridiculous notion that they've come out with, they have to attack it. They have to attack the people. So congratulations to you for your integrity. Dude, you're an amazing man, as far as I can see. And I may not even agree with the whole, young Earth creationist. But I don't care. From what I can see, you're a good man, and you're just speaking truth as you see it from the heart. So I appreciate that. So thanks.
Amen. Let me explain for the rest of the people that are watching. I spent 9 years in prison for structuring. I did not know what that was. Was it 2 weeks ago, Joseph? Find the date when I went over that, answering the critics about Hovind went to prison, therefore he's a bad guy. Half the Bible's written from prison by good people. Jesus was arrested and convicted and executed. Doesn't mean you've done something wrong. I did not break any laws, okay, and they know that. There's is that channel still up? KentHovinIsInnocent.net. It's not up. Somebody did a 15-hour documentary about they came after me because of, it's the one from a couple weeks ago when I talked about, there's all their stuff. No, comments on comment, one comment.
I mean, doesn't it say in the Constitution that income tax is unconstitutional? I'm sure it says that, by the way.
Well, that's not the issue. If I owe a tax, I pay it. Okay, and I go buy something at the store, I pay a tax on it. I pay tax on the gasoline. If you owe a tax, you pay it. I've never been a tax protester. But about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it'd be on a Thursday night, every Thursday night I do comments on comments. Did you find it? Oh, you put it in there. Okay. Watch that. I go through the whole case where the guy breaks down what did they accuse you of and what did you actually do. The judge, who hated Christians, okay, and admitted that. The U.S. attorney that spent 5 years trying to find something to shut me up because of my teaching, when they came in and arrested me with a SWAT team at a church camp. I'm a Baptist preacher. They said, get every DVD number 5 you can find of this video series. Part 5 is called The Dangers of Evolution. Why is this theory not only stupid, it's dangerous? Evolution is the foundation philosophy behind what Hitler did. Stalin, Mussolini, Pol Pot. I go through a whole list of evolution is a dangerous religion. That's what they wanted to shut me up on. So they came and arrested me on totally bogus charges. And we're not done fighting it, okay? But I spent 9 years in prison. I got out 8 years ago and went right back to doing what I was doing. While I was in prison, I wrote 37 books and led 800 men to the Lord and earned 2 more doctor's degrees. And I tried to use my time wisely. But yeah, if they're saying, don't listen to Hovind because he went to prison, well then, okay, don't listen. But half the Bible's written from prison. And I have nothing to hide. I did nothing wrong, and they know that. And it ain't over. The U.S. attorney, after he had me arrested and tried and put in prison, he went down, he flew to Detroit to have sex with a 5-year-old, got off the plane with Vaseline and a Dora Explorer doll. They arrested him and he hung himself in jail. Type in John David Roy Atchison. That was the U.S. attorney that put me in prison for taking our own church money out of our own bank to pay our own bills. Nothing illegal about it at all. Nothing to hide. They made up this. Anyway, watch the video from a couple weeks ago. Right? Thank you.
Yeah, I think he was on the documentary and they talked about that a little bit. I wasn't buying any of it for a second. Ken. It was ridiculous. The whole thing. You could see it was a hit piece, and they have to do it. I spoke about you on this other server. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I'm from this other server called Earth Awakenings. I'd love you to come on there. It's great. We talk about all kinds of different cosmologies. And sorry, do you wanted to?
Well, Andy, that's a good point. I'll be glad to debate anybody. If you want to have on a different channel or different server, somebody wants to bring on and talk about that, let me know the topic ahead of time so I can get slides ready. But I have nothing to hide. I didn't do anything wrong. I can't believe the rumors the atheists spread around my county here, trying to get people to not come to Dinosaur Adventureland. One of them said, "You're a cult." I said, "Why do you believe that?" Because you had a drone flying over your property. Had a guy come with a drone. He said, "Look, I fly drones for a living. I take pictures." He said, "Can I go over and take a picture? Take some pictures. You can use them for promotional stuff." It's, "We got 140 acres here." I said, "Yeah." So now I'm a cult because we had a drone take pictures of our property. Another moron on the internet called Atheist AJ Patterson calls himself Atheist Junior. Every one of his shows is about meat. He's got a little channel with 500 videos about meat. He said we're a cult because we have bunk beds in our cabins. Real stupid. Okay, he claims he's a homosexual. So if you don't know which end is up on what and what, don't get me started on that. When I was a kid, blowing your trans was a bad thing. You didn't want to blow your tranny. They like it, I guess. So anyway, so yeah, I get accused of all kinds of these. 855 Big Dino. I'm extension 3. I take phone calls all day. When I get tired, I shut it off and go to bed. There was a joke in Pensacola. I got so many phone calls. People wanted to talk about whatever. And my daughter was my secretary. She said, "Dad, would you do my wedding?" I said, "Honey, I would be honored to do your wedding." Type in Kent Hovind's daughter's wedding. It's 1 minute long. It's been played 50 times on America's Funniest Home Videos. Watch it, see what you think. Anyway, go on. Next question.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hovind. All right, we have a question. Now, this one's not about creation science. We'll get back to creation science shortly, but I wanted to throw this one in from our audience. Catholic traditionalist asks, what's your thoughts on anti-Pope Francis saying they're now going to bless homosexual couples?
I think the popes have probably been involved in that type of activity for a long time, okay? When you make a stupid rule like your priest can't get married, you're asking for that problem. It's normal and natural for everybody to want to reproduce and make babies. I do it every Friday night on my channel, Genesis Baptist Church. I do a program called Making Babies. And we take a different animal. Here's how they do that. And they're bizarre different ways that they reproduce. And I keep asking the atheists, would you please explain how this evolved? I've done how many? 49 or 50 different plants or animals going through how they make babies. And I asked the atheist, would you please give me a scientific explanation for how this bizarre method of reproduction evolved? Did the male evolve everything, all the equipment to make sperm, but there's no females around for millions of years? Or did they have to evolve at the same time in the same place? And they got to find each other and be interested. Just the drive to make babies is powerful for every animal. Watch the deers, watch the bucks during rutting season around here in Alabama, banging heads into each other. So I think it's normal, natural. And the Catholic Church, when they made that stupid rule that the priest can't marry, they asked for that problem, okay? And so they're, I think, morally corrupt in many cases, okay? And the Pope they should. Well, first place, they're wrong on hundreds of things. We've got books here. I have a whole series on other religions. How much is this whole series, brother? The Mormons and why I can't be a Mormon, the enchanter, the angel of light, the prophet. Most people don't know this. The Catholic Church started the religion of Islam to try to get the Holy Land back. Read this book, The Prophet. We got it in our bookstore. Answers to my Catholic friends. Why I'm not a Calvinist. Holy Scriptures versus the Quran. Answers to my Mormon friends. Not a Muslim. Why I'm not a Catholic. What do they believe? They're Catholic. Why I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not afraid of any other religions. I just want to know the truth. And if somebody teaches the truth, I could probably agree with the Catholics on hundreds of things. If they drive on the right side of the road in America, well, so do I. That's good. I can agree with them on that. I can agree with them on hundreds of things, but I disagree on some very serious issues. And I'm not going to spend my life fighting them, but if it comes up, they have the wrong method of salvation. So if Pope Francis or whoever the Pope is now, I don't even know, if he's saying something about they're going to bless homosexuality, they should read their Bible. It could not be more clear in the Bible what God says about that topic, okay? That is insane for them to do that. Tell him I said so. Tell him to call me. I'll debate him.
Well done. All right, we're going to bring up Babs. Babs, you are now on stage. Go ahead, unmute, and ask Dr. Hovind your question.
Sorry about that. Hi, Dr. Hovind. Nice to meet you formally. I'm curious. Why is I don't know what you practice. I don't know very much about you, and it's not that I'm more into politics, right? And I'm trying to learn religious philosophy, so bear with me. I'm curious to know what you practice and why you feel that that worldview is the truth, right? Because you're saying that Pope Francis and him allowing the gay people to be blessed or whatnot, right? The sexual repression within the Catholic Church, there is a correlation between that and the increased predilection to be homosexual, right? Because of the abuse and the shit in the Catholic Church. And again, the Catholic Church does have they have pedophiles and stuff. But again, what makes I believe you're a Protestant, and I might be wrong. What makes your worldview true and anything that the Pope says or anything wrong? I'm just curious.
Good, fair question. With I do a lot of building and construction. I helped build on some deck down here. We had a gravel pit somebody gave us with nothing here. We've been building everything, 25 cabins, all kinds of stuff. So if you're going to build anything, you better have a standard you can go by. How long do you want that board to be? And there's two basic standards in the world, the English standard and the metric standard. Pick one or the other and stick with it, okay? So that everybody agrees this is a foot. We all have a standard to go by. So where is the standard for right and wrong? If you're going to discuss, like,
morality, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please finish. I apologize.
Well, morality, especially if your standard comes from a book that God claims is inspired and you believe is inspired, I believe God preserved his law. He gave the law like the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. That's kind of a standard most countries follow and have laws about murder and accidental killing somebody. You know, that's different than deliberately killing somebody out of malice. So where's the standard? The evolutionist does not have a standard to measure right and wrong by. That's why to them, well, if it feels good, do it. I ask atheists in debates I do. I say, is it wrong to go next door and kill your neighbor's baby and eat it? Yeah.
I apologize.
Why would that
my
be wrong?
phone
The
died.
lion does it to the zebra all the time.
I apologize.
Goes next door, kills the baby zebra and eats it. Where's the standard for right and wrong? Atheists don't have a standard. That's why they struggle over just about every, is homosexuality right or wrong? Is abortion right or wrong? Most of these issues, before you can get into these and discuss these issues, you better figure out which standard are we going by? Do we have a standard at all? How do we measure right from wrong? I've asked atheists hundreds of times. If evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong on any topic? You go by majority opinion? Well, then Adolf Hitler was right because all his people agreed we should kill all the Jews. So where's the standard? That's what you got to really start with. I have a standard. I believe God wrote a book, had 40 different people write it on 3 different continents over 1,500 years, and I believe he preserved it. And I can read this book, and it says very clearly homosexuality is wrong. And if the Pope has a different standard, well, then he needs to resign his job and go get a job picking peaches or shoveling snow, because he shouldn't be teaching religion if he doesn't have. Where's his standard? Anyway, long answer. Sorry.
What makes you think that objective morals are the standard for the world, right? Now, here's my example. Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, in his worldview, it would be fine to cannibalize and murder black gay men, right? For his shit, right? I don't agree with that. I'm an atheist, and again, he was.
Hold on, Babs.
I tried not to interrupt you. Could I please finish my point?
Okay.
Could I please finish my point?
The way you're phrasing the question is wrong. God did not say you should
Phrasing
murder.
isn't the point.
Hold on,
It's the idea behind it, right?
Right. Well, let's look at it. Let's take that one issue, homosexuality. God said in his law, if a man lies with a man like he does with a woman.
Yeah, that was changed in King James's version to push.
Well, let Dr. Hovind complete his answer, please. Thank you.
Then he's to be executed. He's to be executed. You're right. That's what the law said for the Jews to do that. if homosexuality was to be executed. Let's look at it from a medical perspective. If a man lies with a man like he does with a woman, he's going to have to use the anus, one of the most unsanitary parts of the Bible, and he's going to very likely spread diseases. Would you say that if there's a disease going around, and does the state have a right to say
You
everybody has
mean
to
like
wear?
the AIDS and GRID pandemic?
Well, before you get into the
I used to
details
work
here,
in healthcare. So yeah,
right,
the transmission
I
of
thought that,
HIV is incredibly low. So your example
right.
doesn't really track. But that said, all right, please mute
Well,
me.
why don't you schedule a debate just on that topic, just you and I, and we'll have somebody hit the mute button where we don't interrupt each other. But does the state have an obligation and a right to pass a law that says, hey, there's a pandemic, everybody has to wear a mask? Could they also pass a law that says if somebody engages in this activity, like going around deliberately spreading diseases in our schools, that person should be killed for spreading diseases? This is the type of thinking, though, that I think backs up the law of God. If you do this particular activity, you're likely to be loaded with diseases and you should be executed. Does God have the right to say that? Sure. Do we have to follow it? No, you don't have to follow it if you don't want to. But he did say that. So the question is, how do you decide right from wrong? If this is your standard, there's no argument. I don't say we should execute them, but I think it's silly to try to justify it. And for the Pope to say we're going to bless this activity, that's insanity scripturally and medically. If you were in healthcare, you know full well this is one of the most unsanitary practices you can have. After a man's been having sex with another man, do you want to have sex with him?
All right. So thank you for answering that, Dr. Kent. We're going to go ahead and move to Daniel. Daniel has a question. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hey, Kent, I struggled to rack my mind for a creationist question. I couldn't do it. Sorry about it this time, but I do one question, and something I want to say real quick. I'm not a Roman Catholic. I think what the Pope said was wrong on all that, but he didn't specifically say that he's blessing like homosexuality. But anyway, regardless, the question I had is, do you think there's a particular position Christians should take on the Israel-Palestine war, or should they, say that, hey, that's no good altogether?
Well, Israel, they are the nation, Israelis, they are God's chosen people, and that is their land. It was given to them, given to Abraham 4,000 years ago. Now, they've been fighting over it ever since. As a nation, they are generally, what's the right word to use? They don't have accepted Christ. They rejected the Messiah who came 2,000 years ago, presented himself. So they're not Christian. They're not godly. Okay, there are some ungodly practices, certainly unscriptural. They only would believe the Old Testament. They're not following that. Okay, so I would have to say I'm not going to give them a blanket pass because they do some wicked things over there. There's a lot of homosexuals in Israel, and they wonder why God doesn't bless them. I don't think He can. Okay, but bigger picture is that land belongs to Israel. The Palestinians have had it for a long time, and people have argued about what happened back in clear in the book of Joshua. Joshua went in there to conquer the land that had been given to them, and they didn't complete the job. Then you read through the book of Judges, and you get a whole long list of people who did not complete the job. Had they done the job they were supposed to do back then, 3,500 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Actually, the Palestinians talk about from the river to the sea, and they mean this whole land is ours from the Mediterranean over to the Jordan River. Oh, they better read the Bible. God said from the Euphrates River to the Red Sea is the land of Israel. And it's coming. You're going to see a time. I did a book on the topic, What on Earth is About to Happen? And I did charts on that, what the Bible teaches about the future. And I love studying what the Bible says on the future, about the second coming. We even got a video series, whoa, what on earth is about to happen? Israel's going to end up going from Euphrates River all the way to the Red Sea. They're going to own Saudi Arabia, the whole country, okay? So it's not over yet. But as a people, we're supposed to, I think, side with them, but that doesn't mean we condone everything they do. They are not a godly people, right? Does that help?
Yeah. Are you open to some pushback on that, or not for this stage?
Sure. Open anything. Go ahead.
Okay. On Paul, I can't tell you where. I'm sure you're aware of it, but Paul mentions in one place, he says, "Not all those who are descended from Abraham are Israel." speaking that,
Correct.
to be God's chosen people, to be the nation of Israel is not based on like just purely genetic and ancestry. And then also you have another passage where Paul talks about, he is not one who is a Jew outwardly, but one who is a Jew inwardly. So with these two things, these two passages, why would you think that the people in Israel today are God's chosen people or Israel and not,
Yeah. I have no way of knowing the bloodline of Abraham. It's been mixed up. It's been 4,000 years. I don't know who all had babies with who all. I have no way of knowing. So I don't. I'm Norwegian. That's all I know. That's not all I know. But on that topic, I just have to say, okay, let them fight it out if they want. But it looks to me like most of the people that are claimed to be Israeli are actually descendants of Abraham. If so, but keep in mind, Abraham blew it. He had an illegitimate child with his servant girl Hagar. And this is where the conflict started 4,000 years ago with these different nations that should not even exist. The whole nation should not exist. But they do, and God loves them, and they can still be saved. Ruth was a Moabite. The children of Moab, the way they came onto the scene was bad. But Ruth said, I want to serve God. She ended up being the grandmother of King David. Read the book of Ruth. So God can use it. It doesn't matter what your heritage is. God can use you no matter what grandma and grandpa did. But Abraham blew it, okay? Isaac blew it. Jacob blew it. They produced children that never should have been produced in some cases, and that's where the conflict really goes back to. But my ministry focuses on creation, evolution. I love studying that a little bit, but I don't want to get too far off down a rabbit trail. So yeah, your question was, who do you support? I support Israel. I think if you look at what if the Palestinians came in there, killed 1,200 of their people, and Israel overreacts, the Palestinians asked for it, okay? Maybe not the Palestinians, the Hamas people, they asked for it. Somebody walks up and punches your wife in the face, I hope you get a ball bat and explain it to him in a language everybody speaks, okay?
All right, I appreciate it. I wish I could think of a relatively new creation question to ask you, but I don't have anything fresh. I don't want to just bore you with the old stuff because me and you probably share very, very similar views on the whole creation thing.
Yeah, every Thursday night on my channel, Genesis Baptist Church, and other channels, Rumble and everything is all listed on drdino.com, our website, DRDINO. You can go on and we have every Thursday nights. Oh, after every service, even after tomorrow morning's church service, we have question answer time. I've done nothing to hide. I want to defend my faith and defend God's word against all comers. So please send any questions you want.
Hey Ken, sorry, I did have one more thing. The earlier you had, which it's not a big deal to me. You had said that your legal trouble was structuring or something like that. You described it. From my perspective, I've always just assumed that you were guilty of some tax stuff. And I was like, hey, everyone screws up. I wasn't going to hold it against you. No big deal. But when you said that you were innocent and they accused you of structuring, what is that? Do you care to expound upon it or anything? What is structuring?
Dr. Hovind, you're currently muted.
See,
Thank you.
people don't even know. I'm muted. No, people don't
You're
know
good
the
now.
IRS. Okay, people don't know the IRS is a private corporation. It has nothing to do with our government. They are contracted to the government to collect taxes. It's a private corporation. I did not break any laws of theirs or the government's. So Congress passed a law to try to stop drug dealers. They say if you take out more than $10,000 in cash, the bank has to fill out a form, cash transaction report, CTR. Okay, the bank can fill out any form they want. How am I going to stop them from filling out a form? So that the drug dealers are dealing in cash, and so they've said if you see somebody take out over 10,000, bank fill out a form so that we can start investigating are they a drug dealer. So the drug dealers said, hey, we'll go in the morning and take out 9,500. We'll go in the afternoon and take out 9,500. Oh. So now the Congress passed another law and said, if you do that, 2 transactions in one day, they're each under 10, but they total over 10. You have structured your transactions to evade the reporting requirement. In other words, you're trying to make the bank not fill out their form. Our lawyers told me when I was in Pensacola, in our ministry there, we had a lot of probably 30 some college students working for us, and we'd pay them cash, here's $50, here's $100 when they would do their job. They would just work part-time whenever they could around their class schedule. So we dealt with a lot of cash for several years. And so I told my wife, my lawyer said, try to keep withdrawals under 10,000 so that you can not make anybody come after you for thinking you're some kind of drug dealer. I'll be 71 January 15th. I've never tasted alcohol. I never had any drugs. Had an aspirin about 6 months ago. The only drugs I've ever had. So we were dealing with cash. My wife would take out $9,500 once every 2 weeks, just to have cash on hand in the safe to be able to pay all these students that could come work with us, mow the grass and rake the leaves and do whatever. So after about a year or so, we quit doing that altogether and started writing checks. And so then long after that, they came and arrested me for structuring from years before. I said, what did I do? They said, you took money out of the bank in amounts less than $10,000. Yeah, it was our church money for church bills. There's no crime. Go to KentHovind.net if that's still up. The guy covered that carefully. There never was a crime. So that's what they arrested me for and gave me 10 years in prison. The judge, at sentencing, who hates Christians, she said, Mr. Hovind, your crime is worse than rape. Maximum sentence for this is 6 months, but I'm going to give you 10 years. Then we had to pay, I forget how much money, thousands of dollars to get the transcript of because we can't appeal without the transcript. They purposely waited 14 months to give me the transcript beyond the time of appeal. So my appeal couldn't go in. And so I got the transcript and it had been altered. Somebody, I assume on the judge's orders, took out that phrase worse than rape because she knew that would look bad. And it does look bad. Right? She got promoted now, I heard, to the 11th Circuit judge. Ought to be fired. My humble, totally unbiased opinion. But I don't want to spend my life fighting the IRS. I wasn't fighting them then. They came after me. I didn't do anything. I'm sitting there working on a sermon, and they come in with a SWAT team and arrest me for taking our own money out of our own bank. It was all because of video number 5. They said that when they came. They told the SWAT team, go around, search this place, find every seminar part 5 you can find. The dangers of evolution. They missed the original. We still make it. It's in our series. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Doctor. All right. We're going to bring up another guest. His name is Xbox. All right, Xbox, go ahead, unmute, ask your question.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to say hi to everybody first, and Kent, I've actually debated your son a couple times on evolution and precept back when Scientific Bruggencate was really big. And I have a similar question that I wanted to ask you that I asked him.
You debated my son Eric on creation evolution. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was a while back. It was years back. I just have a similar question that I kind of had for him as well. If I go with, let's just say science is wrong, what you're saying is completely right. You know, the ice dome was there, the flood happened, man might have walked with dinosaur, and just anything you say. If I grant all that, where do we go from there?
You started off with a flaw in your question. I have never said science is wrong. I love science. The word science comes from the Latin word "scire," means to know. What do we know? And how do we know things? The definition of science is, I'll put it up on screen for you here. Put my slides back up there, brother. Science, knowledge gained from using observations, experiments to describe the world around us. Okay? All of science
Yeah,
tells us,
I'll go with that.
now, wait a minute. All of science tells us dogs produce dogs. There are no exceptions. Nobody has ever observed a dog produce a non-dog or a cow produce a non-cow. It's never been observed. Science tells us they always bring forth after their kind, like the Bible says. So you say, are you against science? No. Now, some people who are scientists also include their religion, believing that dogs and potatoes have a common ancestor. Do you believe you are related to a potato, Xbox fiend? Are you related to a potato?
I have no clue. I can't, I'm not a biologist by any means.
Well, all the public school textbooks, and I have hundreds of them here in my library here, they show these family trees where the human, the bird, the ladybug all go back to a common ancestor. To be taught in a science class. Nobody's ever seen a ladybug produce a non-ladybug. Why would we believe a ladybug is related to a horse or a zebra? This is the problem. And your question portrayed the problem at its very root. You said science is wrong. No, I love science. Now, there's some pollution mixed in with science books that is not science. Evolution is not part of science. Evolution is a religion. It's a belief. They believe it very strongly. But they say, oh, look at this. Everybody goes back to a common ancestor. But these charts are nothing but propaganda. This isn't science. So don't say I'm against science. I love science. Science
I
is what
didn't
we
mean
know.
that. I apologize.
Okay, well, no, this is the problem, though. People think, wow, if you're against evolution, you're against science. No, I'm against evolution because I love science. And there's, beer is often sold at football games. Beer has nothing to do with football, nothing. But people try to associate beer and football. There's no connection. There's no connection between evolution and science. Evolution's a religion that you people believe in. Science gained its knowledge. We know dogs produce dogs. That we know. We do not know dogs and potatoes are related. But they put it in a chart, like the kids are supposed to believe that, because they put it in a family tree. So that's why I say your question started off with the wrong premise that I'm against science. I'm not, neither is Eric. We love science. But evolution we're against evolution. We're not against science, okay? So, in other words, that man walked with dinosaurs. I think the scientific evidence is very clear. Man and dinosaurs have always lived at the same time. And some may still be alive. Part of the problem goes back to a much bigger problem. Back in 1830, they started teaching the people that the layers of the earth are different ages. They made up the geologic column. It does not exist anywhere in the world except the textbook. They say the top layer is younger. I keep asking them in my debates, guys, if the top layer is younger, where did it come from? Outer space? There is no such thing as a geologic column. All those layers formed in 1 year during Noah's flood. If I shake up a jar of dirt and rocks and gravel and mud and water and it separates into layers, which it will, is the top layer younger? So no, they say dinosaurs lived in during the Jurassic period. That's where the propaganda and baloney comes in. There's no such thing as a Jurassic period. There's no such thing as a geologic column. I'll show you one more thought and I'll let you take all the time you want. All over the world, petrified trees by the thousands are found standing up, petrified, running through all these layers. How on earth can you say the layers are different ages when you have petrified trees standing up connecting all of them? The problem is the geologic column is included in science books, and it should not be. And they say the dinosaurs lived in the Jurassic age, which is pure baloney. Petrified trees in the vertical position running, Joggins, Nova Scotia has hundreds of them. Petrified trees running through these layers. So there is no geologic column. There is no fossil record. There is no Jurassic period. I think the evidence shows dinosaurs lived with man. I cover a whole video number 3, dinosaurs in the Bible of my series, is 2 hours just on that topic. Dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible. They're mentioned all through history. But they're usually called dragons or some other name, depending on the culture. So we're not against science. We're not against dinosaurs and man. I love the topic of dinosaurs. We have a theme park here in Pensacola, where am I at? Lenox, called Dinosaur Adventure Land. Come on down. It's free. Okay, I won't monopolize the conversation, but you started off with the wrong, I think, assumption that we're against science, and we're not. Go ahead. What's the rest of your question?
Oh yeah. I didn't mean to come off that way. I didn't mean to come off of saying that. I more meant that about evolution, like you're saying, not all of science. But I meant to say that it was.
Let me sharpen the question a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me sharpen the question there too. When you say, are you against evolution, you have to define what you mean by that word evolution, because there are 6 different stages to the evolution theory. First, you have to have cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter with the Big Bang. There's no evidence for that one at all, okay, other than red shift. We could talk about that for an hour if you'd like. If the Big Bang produced hydrogen and helium, they claim all the matter in the universe fit in a dot. Come on, that is just stupid, real stupid. Tell them all I said so, okay? Then you have to have chemical evolution. I don't believe in that. They think hydrogen can turn to lithium, platinum, gold, silver, all that came from hydrogen gas. I'd like to know how to turn hydrogen gas into gold, okay? Then you have stars evolution, stellar evolution. Nobody's ever seen that. We've never seen a star form. Then you have to have organic evolution, the origin of life. Life has to get started somehow. So then you have to have macroevolution, where an animal changes to something else. Nobody's ever seen that. So the first 5 definitions of the word evolution are not science. It's a religion. Microevolution is a lousy term. We should not use that, but they do. Microevolution, see, there's variations within the kind. There's big dogs and little dogs and big cows and little cows. Sure, they're still cow. That's my point is, I'm not, people say, are you against evolution? I say, well, it depends what you mean. You mean things change and evolve? Well, yeah, but there's limits. You think they're ever going to get a dog? My wife, we found a Chihuahua on the highway, believe it or not, this big, a little
Oh, wow.
teacup Chihuahua. She loves
Yeah,
it.
that's, I have 4 of them.
Okay, are they ever going to? They've
Yeah.
been breeding dogs to get them smaller and smaller. Do you think they will ever get a dog as small as a flea?
No,
No.
absolutely not. Yeah.
There are limits. They've got big dogs, whatever the biggest dog is. Do you think they'll ever get a dog as big as Texas? Well, no, there's a
No,
limit
right.
somewhere. Have they reached the limit? I don't know, and I don't care. But there is a limit. They're still dogs. 339 breeds of dogs are still making baby dogs. Maybe the wolf, coyote, and dog are related. Probably so. 339 breeds of dogs. So they're still dog. Are they Chihuahua? Just barely, but it's still a dog. And technically, they're interfertile. If you do, sperm count, DNA count, they could produce a baby, probably kill the Chihuahua. So the microevolution is a lousy word, but they use it. So there are variations within the dog kind, but they're still dog. There are 400 breeds of cows now. They're still cow. Does
wow.
that prove cows and dogs should be put on a family tree connected back to an ancestor? No. These family trees are nothing but artwork. They drew lines on paper. This isn't science. Dogs always make dogs. You could make a family tree of dogs going back to 2 dogs getting off of Noah's Ark, but they're still dog. So this is the problem. Yeah, these stupid family trees is not part of science. And I'm going to fight it till I die, and then my videos are going to keep fighting it after I'm gone. So go ahead. What's your next question?
Yeah. No, that's your point. What I'm trying to get at is, what is your main problem with what science doing? And I think I know the answer to that one is that you don't want your money going to, pay for this not science to be taught in schools and taught and taught to anyone. Like,
The
go ahead,
evolution theory.
and I will follow it.
Yeah, the evolution theory that is being taught is not science. It is a religion mixed in with science, and we're all paying to have their religion taught to the kids in school. If they're going to teach a religion, let's teach all religions or teach none. The bigger question is, should we even have public schools? Okay, if we're going to have them,
Right.
then what? Right now, evolution is a tax-funded religion. That's wrong. You should teach science in a science class. You can teach all the anatomy. This is the deltoid, the biceps, the triceps, the flexors, the extenders. You can teach all the muscles and bones of the body and never talk about evolution. Got nothing to do with it. But they've got it so thoroughly mixed in with science, people think it's part of it. These family trees are not science. It's true. There's a lot of varieties of frogs. 7,371 species of frogs. Now, might have had a common ancestor called a frog. Why did they draw a line between the frog and the bird on this chart for a kid's textbook? That's not science.
No clue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's evil. That's lying to the kids.
Yeah. See,
Okay, go ahead.
go ahead.
So yeah, I'm against evolution in the textbooks as far as the religious part of it. If you want to teach variations happen, go for it. And then you should say, kids, but all we've ever seen is this variation is limited. Well, they don't want to say that because they want these kids to believe this chart. It's not limited. When the protozoa can turn to a turtle and a human and a bird and a spider, I guess the variations aren't limited, are they? That's what they're trying to teach. And I'm against that.
Yeah. See, I think I got that one. The other second question, my main one is, like, even if we take evolution, the bad parts out, and just leave everything the way it is, what's left, and we go with the models that you've set up of how the flood happened and everything that goes along with that. Because I think you in one of your videos you teach about the ice dome kind of thing around the globe, things like that. I'm okay with going with all that. Where does that get us in the end? Like, what's the next step?
Well, I think in science class you should teach science. Man has for centuries been gathering information and learning things, and that's what science means, knowledge. What have we learned? We've learned a lot about different kinds of metals. We could teach the hardness of metals, titanium and iron and lead and zinc and the different kinds. We can teach the Mohs hardness scale. We can teach in biology all the anatomy. We can teach the organs and how they function. There's an enormous body of knowledge that kids ought to be learning. I taught earth science, biology, physical science, algebra, geometry, and trig. I love teaching, and I think kids ought to learn as much as they can. But then there's no reason to involve any religion in this. I believe there's overwhelming evidence that there used to be a lot more oxygen on the planet. When you look at the animals the fossils that are huge, it had a small lung capacity. They must have been breathing richer air than we are. The air we're breathing is 21% oxygen. When they get amber bubbles, that petrified tree sap, trees break, sap goes out and it catches air bubbles. The movie Jurassic Park had to get a mosquito blood out of the amber. Well, if you take air bubbles out of amber, the air bubbles trapped in amber are 32% oxygen. The air I'm breathing right now is 21%. It's 50% more oxygen. So I think there's scientific evidence that the world used to have greater oxygen concentration. If you get much beyond 32%, it starts to become a problem and toxicity comes in, oxygen toxicity. But you find dinosaurs, huge dinosaurs, had nostrils the same size as a horse. How's he going to breathe? I think he had to have not only richer oxygen, but greater air pressure. If you ever climbed mountains, I climbed Mount Rainier one time, and boy, you can hardly breathe up there. I couldn't. I'm sea level. You climb Mount Everest, you better have oxygen tanks with you. That's only 5 miles. Our atmosphere is 50 miles thick. At 5 miles, it's hard to breathe. At 10 miles, you couldn't. You'd die. And 50 miles, you certainly would die. So, but if you put a crystalline canopy over the whole Earth and squeeze the air down into a 10-mile radius, now everybody at the surface would be getting double the air pressure and more oxygen. I think there's scientific evidence that something like that had to be. I don't say I can prove what I call the canopy theory, but I believe the Bible teaches there used to be water above the firmament. The Jews have always taught that. There was a crystalline firmament, 2 or 3 fingers thick, is what the Jews have always taught, above the air, making the earth like a big greenhouse. That crystalline canopy could have been held up by air pressure, like an inflatable building, or held up by a magnetic field. Because when you get super cold ice down to 400 below zero, because it's in contact with outer space, which is absolute zero, minus 459.6 Fahrenheit or minus 273 Kelvin, or centigrade, or 0 Kelvin. When you get ice, the ice canopy probably was super cold, and ice becomes magnetic at low temperatures. So the magnetic field might have held this up. And then you look at the things we see around the North Pole and South, well, not the South Pole, but you find frozen mammoths standing up, frozen with food still in their mouth. They got buried so fast in rapid, real cold snowfall, they froze and suffocated, standing up with food in their mouth, and they froze solid in less than 5 hours. You can't freeze an elephant in 5 hours unless you dip him in something, liquid nitrogen or colder than that. So I just give the evidence for video number 6, Hovind theory. What do you think? Here's what I think happened to cause all these effects that we see. But I'm not claiming I can prove it scientifically. That's all.
Hey,
like a big
well,
hyperbaric
Xbox
chamber.
Fiends. Yeah. So it's Xbox Fiends. We're gonna try to move on. We got a few more people. Thanks for the questions and
Yeah,
whatnot.
no, that's good. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
good.
because
I really appreciate it.
Good 15, 20 minutes. So, first, Mr. Hovind, I'd like to say you're actually one of the first people that I looked into a lot. So I just want to say I'm happy to see you here. When I heard that you were coming on, I was like, oh wow, Ken Hovind, that's awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for your time here. I think one of my first videos, like religious videos I watched, was you against the 3 people or whatever, the 3 teachers or whatever they were. Anyway, I had one quick question because we have other people. I don't want to spend too much time, maybe like a minute or two. What is your understanding of the primordial soup that the evolutionists kind of, they believe this is the origin of life? What is your take on that?
I think that's got to be one of the dumbest theories in world history. It goes to video number, or seminar, I'm sorry, the 6 different types of evolution. This is number 4, the origin of life. Textbooks teach the kids, and I want us all to pay for it. Here's National Pornographic. When Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago, it was a uniform ball of hot rock. Okay. At first, Earth was a ball of molten rock. Fact monster. Let's see. And when the Earth formed, it was a hot ball of rock, and it began to cool down. The rock melted, and the Earth was a hot ball of melted rock. Earth science. Here's National Pornographic again. Billions of years ago, the Earth started off as a hot, viscous ball of rock. New research suggests when Earth was still a ball of molten rock, Universe Today, textbook, biology textbook, Earth is thought to have formed 4.6 billion years ago. It was very different. Earth began as a hot ball of rock. This is what they teach. R.N. Nelson, who calls himself the sun god, R.N. Ra, he's not a god, you got to be bright to be a sun too, but he said, no evolutionist ever believed we came from a rock. Yes, R.N., you do believe you came from a rock, okay? 3.9 billion years ago, the Earth was finally got cooled down where they could get water vapor to condense. Earth started off as a ball of very hot liquid. Millions, 100 millions of years ago, the Earth's core was formed as the Earth cooled down. Earth formed, this is what they teach, okay? There's no question. I got how many textbooks here, Bobby? Bunch. Hundreds, okay? Bunch behind me here. You want earth science, biology. This is what they teach the kids. Earth was so hot, the collisions, all the rock melted, and the Earth was a hot ball of melted rock. This is Berkeley University, California, okay? Millions of years of rains created the oceans. Swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. So the evolution theory clearly teaches Earth was a hot ball of rock. When it got cool enough, it began to rain on the rocks and turned them into complex chemical soup. There it is. In the oceans, 3.5 billion years ago, scientists believe the first living organisms appeared. Earth started off as a hot ball of rock. And then over millions of years, it rained and produced the oceans. And in the oceans, you have life getting started. Here's Yale University. How Earth formed, how Earth became habitable. Earth transformed itself. Let's see. Earth transformed itself with fiery carbon-clouded balls of rock into a planet capable of sustaining life. So to summarize here, the evolution theory teaches Earth was a hot ball of rock. It rained on the rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup. And in the oceans, there's a bunch of minerals mixed up, and they came alive. So yes, they do believe they came from a rock. You tell all of them. That is stupid, real stupid. Okay? Tell them all I said so.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, I try to tell them that often. I guess maybe we'll bring up this blackout.
Sure, yeah.
Mine.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Well, real quick.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Xbox.
Blackout.
Sure.
I appreciate the combo, Dr. Hovind. Maybe we can pick up some other time and go through a few other things if you don't mind. So I appreciate the time, though.
I didn't follow that. If that was a question, it's all scrambled up with everybody else talking. So
Xbox was thanking you for your time. Thank you, Xbox. All right. Some people have been asking us on the server about endogenous retroviruses and how this is a marker or a pointer to common ancestry. I don't see how that's the case, but could you speak to that for a moment and show us why that is not a sign of common ancestry and evolution?
Well, the viruses are not bad. People think viruses, some are bad, okay, but most are necessary part of life. We have a bunch of chromosomes in our body, and the DNA code is incredibly complex. I'd say the code, I bet I could search through a book like this and find a sentence, a phrase, maybe 5 words in a row that I could also find in this book, just by chance. Is there a possibility that some of the books in my library of 4,000 books here, that some of those have identical sentences? Sure. Does that prove they're related? No, that's the English language. There's a lot of phrases we use over and over again. So if there are some similarities between us and chimpanzees in our DNA code, and there are some similarities in this incredibly complex code, you could probably find thousands of lines of code that are identical. What does that prove? First, we have to agree, yes, there are similarities in the code. Does it prove common ancestor, or could it prove common creator? I bet you could find Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Word have millions of identical lines of code. Identical. I bet they both go to the same spell checker. Oh, so what does that prove? That one evolved from the other, or that the same corporation is writing these codes? This is where the evolutionists, they see something that's interesting, and they're right. There are some viruses, that endogenous retroviruses within the human chromosome comprise 8% of the genome. Okay. And I go through this on one of my debates I did last month. I spent a long time on this. If you want to go back and look at that, it's on our channel, Genesis Baptist Church. So what did the viruses prove? In the evolutionist mind, viral genome junk hits the trash. They found, oh, well, this doesn't work. It's not proof for evolution. They've known this for a long time. It does not. But they're so desperate. They want so badly to be related to a monkey that they say, wow, we're related to an ape because look at the endogenous retroviruses. The similar viruses that we have to apes' viruses in their gene code or in their body could prove a common ancestor. It could prove we're both having to live in the same world and eat the same food and digest and face the same problems, temperature change and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily prove a common ancestry. This is where they just get nuts. They go crazy. Back in 2008, they knew that this was not proof for evolution. New beneficial function of endogenous retroviruses. Oh, now they found out they have a function. They do something. That was 2014, 10 years ago. Endogenous retroviruses play a critical role in the body's immune defense. So I think if you go to, there's a couple of websites that go down deep on this. ICR, Institute for Creation Research, ICR.org, has great stuff on that. Ken Ham's channel, or website, Answers in Genesis, has great stuff on endogenous retroviruses and how this not really junk DNA. They used to, 200 years ago, think that the human body had 200 vestigial organs you don't need. You don't need your tonsils, you don't need your adenoids, you don't need your appendix. Now they know the function of all of them. There are no vestigial structures. One of the atheists I debated said, well, the tailbone is vestigial. I said, I will pay to have yours removed. Bend over. I know right where it's at. I taught anatomy. It's not vestigial.
Well done. All right. We have Honest Inquiry is up. He has a question. Honest, are you there? Go ahead and ask your question, sir.
Yes, I'm here. How's everybody doing tonight? Thanks for taking the time. Let me come up. So, Dr. Hovind, thank you for having this space, and let me ask the question. So, look, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a physicist or any of these things, and I certainly am not capable of debating evolution, right? But correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that you think evolution is not the case, and you argue against it because of what the Bible says, right? And so my question is, to back it up a step away from the evolutionary topic, to what is the main reason that you believe the Bible is true? What is it that convinces you the most that the book is true and what it says? Thank you.
Well, okay, you got a flaw in your question. I'm not against evolution because I believe the Bible. I'm against evolution because it isn't science. Nobody's ever seen a cow produce a non-cow, ever.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll take that back. So just my
Right.
question is, what's the main thing that convinces you that the Bible is true?
Well, we have a Bible, a book that dozens, maybe even hundreds of times claims to be the Word of God. Well, then, is it or isn't it? If I claimed I was Superman and could fly, because I got Kent in there, Clark Kent, you could test it. Okay, fly. And I can't do it. So my claim is wrong. Here we have a book that claims to be the Word of God, and it claims to tell us how the world came to be, and it gives a whole bunch of dates of how old it is. It says nothing died until Adam sinned, and Adam was 130 when his son was born, and the dates are all given in Genesis 5. You can make a chart like this very easily, or the Bible dates that up to about 4000 BC for the creation, 6,000 years ago. So I've got a book that is claiming to be inspired of God. It is claiming to teach how the world was made, and it makes a whole bunch of prophecies all through here, hundreds and hundreds of things. They said this is going to happen, and then later it happens. Fulfilled prophecies is one of hundreds of reasons why I believe the book changed lives. This book changes people's lives for the better. People who read the Quran I think it changes their lives to be worse because they want to kill everybody who's not believing like them. And the only sure way to go to heaven in their religion is you got to kill a Christian. I think that makes for a dangerous bunch of.
Well, I mean, irrespective, I don't, to not digress of, I mean, I'm asking you your main reason, right? Like, if there's, like, let me ask it this way. It, is there one thing that convinces you about the validity of the book that if that one thing were undermined, and I don't know how, I mean, I can't even imagine what that evidence might look like, but if that evidence was undermined in some way, that it would decrease your confidence that the book is true? Is there any of the reasons? Like, is there a main reason? Like, what is it that convinces you the book is true, right? And not because it seems like what you're saying it seems like what you're saying is that it tells a story, and the story that you see seems to match what you see around you, and then there were some changed lives, I think you said, right? So is that fair?
That would be
So far,
that would be a few. That would be a few of. There's many other reasons also. It tells
is
a
there a
story.
main
And,
reason though?
well,
Is there a
the
main
evo-
reason?
I think there's probably 40 or 50 different lines of evidence that would point that way. We have the historical evidence. We have the anecdotal evidence. We have the observable evidence. This book says all the animals will always bring forth after their kind. 24 times in the first 7 chapters of the Bible, it says they're going to bring forth after their kind. And before you get into a big discussion about what does the word kind mean, has anybody ever seen any animal produce an offspring that would be considered a different kind?
I'm not asking you about evolution, Mr. Hovind, please. I mean, I made that clear, right? I'm asking you what convinces you that the book is true and you believe it, right? And I mean, I know that you don't believe that evolution is true, right? I got that. But I'm asking you why you believe the Bible. What is it that convinces you the book is true?
Well, like as I was giving you my list, it's not something I normally speak on, but people have done this for centuries, come up with a list of reasons why the Bible is true. It claims to be true. It claims to be written by God. So if it's got a contradiction in it or a mistake, then God didn't write it. Nobody's been able to prove a contradiction. Atheists have tried. The so-called errors in the King James Bible, this guy did a great job with his book answering 80 or 90 of the most common supposed contradictions, and there aren't any. And you can answer all of them, but if you spend your time answering all their supposed contradictions, rather than say, wow, I believe it, they're going to go look for more. They don't want to believe it. They don't want that book to be true because that book says things that cramps their lifestyle. So I've seen it change lives. When people follow the writings of that book, they become better people. The founders of this country, July 4th, said, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence to King George, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Where do rights come from? This book is the best way to govern people. Not communism, not Nazism, not socialism. This book tells the proper way to have government, tells the proper way to have, just the simple 10 commandments. Don't commit adultery. Don't lie. Don't bear false witness. Don't almost all countries try to pass laws to really accomplish the same thing, laws against slander. This is a good model to go by. It changed my life 55 years ago. When I asked the Lord to save me, something changed on the inside. And it's still changing. Something's growing inside there. It's a whole new person, a whole new Kent Hovind. At 16 years of age, I accepted the Lord. So I have many reasons. I'd have to put together a list, I guess. I wasn't prepared for that. But many reasons why I believe it is true. I have many scientific reasons why I believe evolution is not true. It's never observed. It's not science. So our ministry, Dinosaur Adventureland and Creation Science Evangelism, we want to use the evidence for creation to evangelize, to get people saved. If you died tonight, where would you go? What would happen to you?
Thank you, Dr. Hovind, for that. We are pretty close to close here. And we want to thank you so very much for coming on. We want to wish you and your family a healthy and happy Merry Christmas. Also, if you could, if you want to tell the audience where they can find you, your website, any sites you have like that, that would be great.
Sure. I live in Lenox, Alabama, which is straight north of Pensacola, Florida, about 70 miles. Come on down and see us right on Interstate 65. Just type in Dinosaur Adventureland. Our YouTube channel is Genesis Baptist Church. On Rumble, it's Kent Hovind Official. We used to be on YouTube, Kent Hovind Official. They took us down, never told us why. So we just came right up the next day on another channel, Genesis Baptist Church. But drdino.com, we just started on TikTok. Joseph, I don't even know what TikTok is, but apparently something a clock does or something. Anyway, we're just started on TikTok, on Rumble, on Odyssey, a whole bunch of places. Kent Hovind Official on TikTok. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. I got my tech people do all that for me. So, yeah, you can call 855-BIG-DINO. Extension 1 will take you to the secretary if you want to get material. Extension 3 will take you to me. Extension 4 takes you to our tech guy who can answer any other questions about it, or go to tech support@drdino.com. Yeah, I've been a Baptist preacher 49 years, almost 50. I believe the Bible is true and evolution is stupid, and our whole ministry is devoted to glorify God for his creation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
All right, I'll be glad to come on anytime. If anybody, other channels, I do a couple of these a week. I'd like to do one every day. Any channel, I want to just spread the word. God's word is true. I want to get everybody converted.
We do too, Mr. Hovind. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Everybody who didn't get to ask, next time I'm gonna, especially if I know that this is the event's gonna take place, I'm gonna try to get things going a little bit faster. Like, it shouldn't be like 20 minutes like per one person. I don't know, like 10, 15 tops. Even 15 is a little bit much. But
well, I'll tell you what.
Anyway.
We have this show weekly. It's most weeks. Every once in a while, there's a scheduling conflict, and we don't do it every single Saturday. But it is scheduled to take place every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So remember your questions, jot them down, and come by. We'll get you up there, and you can also DM me or ping me in the server and say, hey, I've got this question, make sure you get me up on the show, and I'll get you up there. The show's done for right now. We do have like strict time with Dr. Kent, since he does have other shows that he attends. We have to cut it off at 7:30 sharp. Wasn't really much time for another question there. If everybody wants to, we could head down to a channel down below for like some after show or after talk like that. We could head down to the Christian chat if y'all would like to. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Really appreciate it.
He is.
Don't say all this shit. Shit ain't only.
Christian
What
chat,
happened
Christian
atheist
chat under
speechless, bro? Like
Discord,
they would
and then
ask and they would just say
Whose
nothing.
poop is holy?
So was he arguing for pro evolution or against evolution?
For creation.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
We're talking about poop. Listen.
My poop is holy.
Yeah, I saw that Jesus guy talking shit.